what if we were more like kids when they're like 4, 5, 6, and they see another kid and they're like, "Hi, you want to play?" They don't care what your name is, the color of your skin, what car you came in, where you live. It's just like, "You want to play?" What if we were more like that? We had more vulnerability with each other, and it was irrelevant about what car we drove or the clothes we wore or whatever, so that you were willing to engage with everybody. What if it was more about the engaging because it was the kindness that somebody is or the humor that they had?
Simone, thank you so much and welcome to Feelings with Strangers. And wonderful to see you. And you're just saying you're in Costa Rica, which,
Thank you, Paul. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I am. I'm in Costa Rica. I'm at a property called El Lugar, which is a property that we have been building here, and we're about 70% done,
yeah.
and it's stunning.
And is this for, you're going to be running workshops for access consciousness? Is that the,
Yes,
yeah,
we actually already do.
do them?
So
Yeah.
we're open. We've just we've got a few more buildings that we want to do and a few more casas, a few more houses, etc. But there's quite a bit of accommodation. I think we can have about 125 people here at the moment.
Wow.
And we've got a couple of seminars happening in the next few weeks. I mean, like I told you before we start hit record, I'm here for 39 nights.
Yeah.
But I have my horse here, so I'm really grateful. I arrived here yesterday, and this morning I went up and saw her, and she's so beautiful, and went riding this morning. So I'll
You
go
need
riding
to,
again tomorrow.
you need to
So
hook up with
yeah.
Lenny. You need to hook up with Lenny Kravitz. Doesn't he have a horse out in a property in Costa Rica?
That's true.
Oh God,
That
go
would be
find him.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Just
I've
ride.
seen him horse ride. Yeah, yeah. I love it. It's so cool because you ride out here and you're like riding to these big, like we've got these like big rivers that, and if there's lots of rain, it's almost like a waterfall, and there's
Yeah.
like toucans and those big blue butterflies and caimans, and just this, it's amazing. It's like, a National Geographic show.
Yeah. Amazing. Mosquitoes?
Yeah, there are mosquitoes, but we've got like I sleep with my door open. I'm pointing to, because I'm in my room at the moment.
Yeah.
I sleep with my door open, but we've got screens.
Yeah.
So it's so
It's fine.
beautiful as you're going to sleep, and you can hear all the noises. And my favorite thing is the howler monkeys. At like 5 o'clock in the morning, you've got these no I don't know if you've ever heard a howler
I think
monkey,
I have.
but
Yeah.
they sound like a gorilla, but they're really little, but they're so guttural, and that's what you wake up to.
It's pretty hard once you've had, because I think saying before, I'm just outside of Byron, so we're sort of up in the hills a little bit. And once you get used to the noises of just nature when you sleep, it's so
Mm.
grounding for you. It's really hard because the night is not quiet at all. Like it's so noisy.
No, no, it's not. But then it's a different
It's a
noise as
different
you're waking
noise.
up. The
Yeah.
howlers will start at like I said, 5, and the birds, etc. So it's like you're waking up with nature. I like it. I like waking up early here like that. But you're
Yeah.
so correct. We've got pumas out here.
Oh,
There's,
Jesus.
you know, yeah, I haven't seen one, but there are other animals out here, so that are, nocturnal. So yeah,
Yeah.
it gets noisy.
No pumas seeking self-development, just turning up for a bit of access consciousness. Some,
Um,
no, sorry, it's a bad joke. It's
not,
a dad
not
joke.
yet, not yet.
Well, look, thank you for your time. And for people, so I found you through Dane Her, who I've got an episode on, um, just to do with access consciousness and the incredible work and tools that it enables in people to be more authentic in their lives and live the lives that they want and break patterns which are keeping them stuck. And I know you're a very large part of access consciousness, and I guess it would be great for people to hear your story. So how you arrived at where you are now. And yeah, because I think everyone, it's easy to see someone who people perceive as having, this perfect life, and they might feel stuck in what they're doing, whether it's a career, a job, a career, family, whatever that is. And we've all got a story of everyone has to overcome something, the
Yeah.
hero's journey, if you want to start living more authentic lives.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'm going to say, let me start when I was, I think, about 16, 17, that you know, everyone's doing that thing of going, so what do you want to, where do you want to go when you leave, you know, school? What are you going to study? What are you going to be when you grow up? And people, I felt like my friends around me were making these choices and I had no idea what to choose. And all I wanted to do was see the world. And I also
Mm.
knew, like, I'd look out and think, this can't be it, you know, like people choosing trauma and drama, or just these, you know, these stories of trouble. And I was like, there has to be something different, because I was always looking at the earth. You know, for me, I was like looking at the earth, the animals, and etc., and going, there has to be something else, there has to be something else. So I wanted to travel the world, and I also said I want to own my own business. And people would be like, well, what do you want to do, what sort of business? And I was like, I don't know, but I
Mm.
just know having a business is a place that can be so malleable, and you can create what it is you desire in the world. So that was my point of view. So I
Mm.
left when I was 18, I think just turned 19, and I went overseas and told everyone I was going for 6 months, and ended up being away for three years. And you know, then came home and everybody sort of gave me that, you know, slap on the back and said, well, you've got that out of your system now. And I was like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Go get a
Like,
job.
this is the beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, this is just the beginning. And you know, through all of that, like I talk about that as though it was easy. It was easy in one aspect, Paul, except hardly anyone around me was really supportive except for my father. My father was always like, you know,
Mm.
Simone, you have to go and figure out what it is you want to do with your life. You have to choose. Like, I will be here for you, but you have to choose. And what I found over the years is when you choose, and when you choose something that's different from what everybody else is choosing, it makes other people uncomfortable because they can no longer put you into a box, right?
Mm.
So for me, traveling overseas was so beautiful because every place I went, nobody knew me. So you could almost like reinvent or almost discover yourself every day.
Yeah, you're
So
causing mayhem, and then you just
I did
leave.
cause a lot of I like to say, Paul, that I've had a colorful life. That's
Yes.
how I
Yeah.
like to describe it. I've definitely done that, and I have no place to judge anyone. That's for sure. Everything I've chosen. It's made me who I am today. So there you go.
Yes.
So,
Beautiful.
I mean, I did all of that, and then I ended up starting a business called Good Vibes for You.
Mm.
Um, and it was about, we did merchandise, for Pete Murray, Missy Higgins, like a
Yeah.
few different people that we did. And but I also did merchandise and sold it at all, you know, Byron Bay Blues Fest. It's like all the big day outs, Livid, like all the music festivals we did. And for me, it was about having these, I guess these statements, these memes, these quotes on T-shirts and magnets and stickers, etc., to empower people to know that there was something different. And you know, I mean, there's so many different struggles and choices that I made in those businesses. And then
Mm.
met Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, at a Mind, Body, and Spirit festival in Sydney, and was like, oh my God, this guy's talking about everything I want to create in the world, you know? And he was so irreverent and he swore. And one of the things he said to me, which I will never forget, is don't trust me, trust you. And I was like, God, that's a relief, because you know, for years I could hear people saying to me, you know, you have to do this, and if you don't do this, this is, you know, everything's going to be out of line, and blah blah blah. And for once, someone was saying, you know, what is the best thing for you, and you need to trust yourself.
Mm.
And that was so refreshing. And then I met Dane here, like a few weeks later, and Dane, it's funny, Dane was the first person to ever. He ran my bars, which is one of the hands-on processes that we have in Access.
Mm.
And after he ran my bars, I was like, how just happened? I was like, oh my God. And I went outside and I looked at him and I went, I think I'm going to be working with you for the rest of my life. And it was such an odd thing to say, but that was just what came up for me. I was like, this is it. I know, I know, I know, I know. This is what I've been looking for. I've been seeking something different, knowing that there has to be something different. This is it. And for me, you know, Access Consciousness, I've worked with for 24 years, and it's so diversified and changes all the time, because it takes one person coming along like yourself, Paul, and asking a question. You go, oh, hang on, let's look at this from a different perspective, or what else is possible, like being in question and
Mm.
finding out, you know, what other possibilities are available beyond this.
Mm.
So it's such a gift to like tapping people on the shoulder and waking them up and going, hey, is what you have enough, or would you like something different? Would you like something more? What if it's easier than you think? Like, and so here I am today.
Mm.
That's my short version. Obviously, I could talk about everything that's happened in the past, however many years, for 50. So, there's a lot.
Yeah. So what after you made that statement to Dane and said we're going to be working together for the rest of your life, what was the process? Were you working? Did you have a company at that point?
I did. I had the company Good Vibes for You. Like I had that business. So I was, selling, like stickers and magnets and t-shirts and everything at festivals. And I ended up going to some classes that Gary and Dane were doing.
Mm.
And then they kept saying, they were like, you know what, you could help us out with this. And I was saying, I've got my own business. And I went, like, I'll help you over here, but I've got my own business, so I can't sort of get fully involved. And it's interesting, Paul, because I had made this demand of myself that I would never work for anyone. I would only ever work for myself.
Mm.
But what I realized, after meeting them too, was it was such a limitation to have that point of view. And I didn't want to commit to them. And Gary looked at me, he had this really long conversation with me one day, and he kept asking me what commitment meant to me. And I was like, I have no choice. I have this and all these different points of view, which is a lot of what access consciousness is about, is sort of
Mm.
having a look at what if you decided something means that it doesn't, I've misidentified something. Because I was like, well, if I start working with you, that means, and it didn't mean anything. You can create it as you choose. So we had this long conversation, and because I was organizing something for them and I didn't want to take any money. And Gary was like, why? And I was like, because if I receive money from you, that means I'm committed to you. That was my point of view. And so when I looked at that and got over that and realized that what they were creating matched the energy of what I wanted to create in the world, like it was so congruent,
Mm.
that I went, okay. And Gary was like, you're working with us. And from that day and having those conversations with him too, I've never felt like I am working for anyone. I do have that sense of I'm working with Gary and Dane. And I mean, we've come a long way. We were in 4 countries at that time, and I think we're in 187 countries now. So, I was the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness for 18 years,
Mm.
and now I'm also facilitating a lot of the advanced classes. So it's really come a long way, and we've worked together on so many things, and there's thousands of facilitators around the world and practitioners. So I've been a major player in the growth of the business, and I'm really grateful that I got over my point of view that I wasn't going to work with anybody else, because for me, like I said, this really matches the energy of what I want to be in the world and what I want to see in the world.
Mm. Well, it's what I love about access consciousness is what you said. It's a question model, really. Like, it's
Mm.
not this fixed course material or paradigm where you need to do it this way. It's through the asking the right questions you'll discover your own truth.
Or even asking a question,
Or
because I
yeah.
think come out of asking because right question, it's like just asking a question,
Mm.
any question, any question. And we're not taught to ask questions, we're taught to have the answer.
Mm.
So when
Mm.
you can actually start to look at, I mean, one of my favorite questions at the moment in regards to anything like money, business, friendships, relationships, traveling, anything, what else is possible beyond this? Because we tend to go to this conclusion when we're looking at stuff. Like even the other day, I traveled from Colombia to Costa Rica, and there's a few little things, hiccups here and there, and we were like, okay, magic and miracles, come on, what else is possible beyond this? And I was with a friend, and we just had such a great day traveling, right? But it's like life is not all rainbows and unicorns. And so what are you going to do when stuff, hits the fan and you're like, okay, all right, what am I going to choose with this? What else is possible beyond this? What have I not looked at? What am I not receiving here? What else? What else? What else? What else? Because the universe has so much out there available. And we keep it this limited thing by trying to ask the right question or go to a conclusion and go, this is what works. No, if we actually open ourselves up to everything is possible, different reality.
Mm. I love that idea. It's not a, it's in the Bible. The initial where and it's not coming from a religious perspective on my point, but in terms of like and God made the world and it was right. So essentially saying that it was complete. And if you take that idea that the world is already completely manifest in its perfection, and it's waiting for our perception to enter into different dimensions or realms.
Mm.
So the example would be, say, technology. Like we've always had the technology to make, like a mobile phone or this computer that we're sitting and talking in front of right now, but the
Yeah.
consciousness wasn't available to the people, uh, whatever, 100 years ago to do so. So it's so interesting then to use tools which enable us to actually not criticize the world for the way that we think it is as a immovable, immutable object, but to be, no, it's actually continually changing, and it's us who are creating the change through our perception.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that I was brought up a Catholic. We had to study, the
Yeah,
catechism off by heart, all of that. And I do not actually remember that from the Bible, but
I
I
think
will
it's in the
comment
yeah.
is what if it is perfect, but not perfect from, because I think perfection is a judgment, right? Because it's not movable. But for me, it's like I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I could say this for you, is that in nature, you know how like when you go out in nature and you just like, oh, it's just you, and you have you. And for
Mm,
me, I look at nature, nature has this presumptive reality that you're just going to be. It doesn't have an expectation of you. It doesn't have a projection of you. It doesn't have a judgment. So therefore, there's no separation of you and nature. It's you get to choose. You can be with nature, or you can be totally aware of what's going on around you, or you can choose not to be aware of what's going on around you. And I think that's what the planet, the earth
it's
gives us as
interesting.
well, is
Yeah,
that freedom to have that and be that.
yeah. Well, it's like the first stage to the things that you want for me has been, instead of the action orientated, I'm going to go and make all these, say if it's business, I'm going to instigate all these changes within the business. And I'm not to say, obviously, we live in a world where there's cause and effect. Like
Mhm.
that is also true. But the biggest difference has been made through going inward into the consciousness and to expand the consciousness of what's possible, to open that field, to remove the blinkers and open that field of vision. So as you said with nature, like you could ignore what's going on, but or you could become more observant to what's there,
Mhm.
that you can become more in flow with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I don't know, there was many years ago, I was went for a swim, and it was down in the Central Coast in New South Wales. And I went for a swim. I was with my friend who is a surfer, avid surfer,
Mm.
and I dove into the water and I was like, and I was like, shark.
Hmm.
And I jumped back out of the water and I was like, am I just being paranoid? You start to have those
Probably, yeah.
things that, oh, yeah. And then I could see my friend walking up the beach with his surfboard, and he's usually out there for hours, and he's walking up the beach, and the look on his face, I went, what's up? And he was like, oh my God. He said he just like ducked over under this wave, and there was this massive shark like coming, towards him. And I went, huh. I was like, cool. And I'll never forget that, because I went, oh, I know the energy of shark.
Mm.
And then what I've also looked at is, because I mean, I live in Peregian Beach, but snakes have always been a bit for me. And so I started to look at documentaries and I started to educate myself more about snakes. And I realized that if I'm like, instead of avoiding it, it's like, what if you're willing to recognize the energy of snake, recognize the energy of shark, recognize the energy of what nature is choosing, and what, because it's not out to get you, like,
No,
it's not sitting out there going, oh, she's in the water, let's go,
there
or a
she
snake
is.
in the
Yeah, it's
here she
usually
is. Yep.
it's usually German tourists. If it's in Australia, they don't usually get the Aussies. Sorry to people
It's
listening in Germany. I'm joking.
well,
Okay.
traveling around the world is so funny, and I'm sure you've had the same thing when people are like always commenting about how many dangerous
Things are
animals we
in
have in
Australia.
Australia, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I've
but
never
we
had.
don't have bears or tigers or
Yeah,
lions
yeah,
attacking us. It's like we don't have snakes or sharks. I mean, yes, you get certain things, but but here's the thing. My whole comment is we can choose to be in communion with it all,
yes,
and have this mutual honoring of
yeah.
each other. And from I mean, it's more like Avatar, it's like that whole energy of
You
when you
feel
connect to everything.
Yeah, you feel protected. I've just got a really quick story on that because it's interesting with the snakes. Because I don't so much now, but I used to do a lot of trail running. So you'd be in the middle of nature for hours on end. And there was one particular, and I didn't, I've never had a fear of snakes, but you'd occasionally see them and have to, I'll just wait, or you jump over them. And that they would want to get out of your way as much as you'd want them to get out of your way. But
Mhm.
there was one time I was a bit stupid. And I was on my own. I was up a mountain and I didn't have any reception on my phone, which is just a idiotic thing to do if you're trail running in case something happens to you, because I hadn't, there was no one else I'd seen for hours. But as usually when I'm going up a mountain, I would be saying thank you to the trees. I'll be talking to, doing all the stuff I can
Yeah.
do that you don't get put in an insane asylum if you're in the city. But I
Yeah.
was like, you beautiful thing. Oh, thank you. And I just talking to nature. And
Yeah.
I was running down, so because it's a long way up, and then I was coming down, and it's much harder to control obviously when you're running down your speed and whatnot. And I the only time I'd fell, I tripped. I hit a branch and I
Yeah.
and fell, got up, and as I got up, there was this huge black snake. I'm not sure what kind it was, but it was, if I hadn't tripped at that particular point, I would have trodden on this snake
Wow.
100%. So so I tripped at the perfect timing, and the snake just had enough time to get out of the way, and it must have been like, it was a good meter and a half, like tail went off,
Wow.
and I
Yeah.
didn't see. So it took me then another hour or so to get down. So, and I didn't see another soul. And so if I had stepped on that snake and got bitten, cactus, like my
We wouldn't be talking right
we
now.
would, yeah.
It's amazing.
So
Isn't
it's
that
amazing.
amazing?
I then think,
Nature,
yeah, nature protect, like
your body,
yeah,
your body, you like,
you sense it. Like I've had a few incidents with potentially, I've always felt like we've been protected, but things that could have caused serious harm in our
mm,
animal cousins. And before I've even seen them, I felt it. Like as you said with the shark, you feel like that energy of, like, your body knows when there's some sort of
yeah,
present danger. And then it's also
yeah.
not being freaking out, like then breathing and relaxing and being like, oh, hello, friend. Here we are. To a
No, Paul,
degree.
though, I've seen so many of those videos of people, with sharks and like, grabbing their nose and sort of
And
bringing it down sort of thing.
yeah,
And I'm like, good in concept. If
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually confronted with that, I'm not quite sure that that's what I'm going to choose.
I'm
But
sure.
you know what?
I'm sure you build up to it. Hopefully, you don't just
Yeah.
naively swim out there and pat a great white on the end of its snout,
And just be like, no, I'm
your
just going to
schnauzer.
guide you over here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like all the videos of people, you see all the people in Russia with their big brown bears. I'm sure there's a couple of videos you don't see where the brown bear just suddenly decides, hold on,
Yeah. Yeah. Mold them. Yeah.
maybe. So look, I would love to discuss, because it's something that's been on my mind, but just through asking questions, opening up new avenues for things that you didn't perceive that were possible for you. So often we can feel stuck in our lives, in a job, uh, in a relationship, whatever that may be, and there doesn't and from that consciousness of feeling stuck, we don't get new answers. If anything, we end up fortifying and attracting to us more situations which confirm that feeling that we have. So, in your experience, like what works from your experience to help just loosen that energy, to start opening up new avenues for people to see, well, what I could try this, what about this, maybe it's not so bad.
Well, let's use the business as an example because it's actually today, I mean, it's nighttime now in Costa Rica, and today I've had quite a few conversations with people I work with, and
Mm,
I was talking about, okay, let's go back one step. Is the beginning of this year, around February, I was getting a little like something has to change with the social media that we have. And I said, look, I get this sense, like I feel like my social media is becoming this advertorial instead of, for me, what my social media should be is me,
mm,
and tools of access and living, it's like,
mm,
here you go. Not this, like, and I have classes. And I said, I get that. I get we have to put my classes out there, but there's something else. And so I woke up at the end of January and I went, okay, I'm done. No more social media for the month of February. And it was so funny because everyone on my social media team or anyone I work with were like, what? but what about the algorithms? What about this? And I was like, I don't care. I don't care
Huh.
about the algorithms. I don't care about any of that. And I said, I need to do something different. So for the whole month of February, we didn't do any social. I didn't look at social, didn't do anything. And it was very interesting to see what showed up for me personally. Because you were doing things like, I don't know, going for a run, going to the beach or doing something. And there wasn't this energy of like, take a photo, take a video, show this or do that. And I was like, wow, like
Mm.
cooking, and I'm like, I'm just cooking. I'm just going for a run. I'm just doing this. And I was like, I would like to bring that back into my life. So ever since then, I started to, I live at Prigian Beach. So I'd go across the road. I'd usually have my phone, maybe listening to something or writing down something, an idea. But I just started going and just not taking anything. And I know that sounds so strange because I grew up with that. Like I didn't grow up
Mm.
with mobile phones. I didn't grow up with the internet. It's like so it became such a big part of our lives. And I wanted to sort of that like go back to basics.
Mm.
Get your car filled up, drive to a petrol station and someone else fills your car up with petrol and you actually engage with someone. But anyway, that's not happening now. But in the month of February, we did that, right? And it was very interesting to see everyone I worked with and what went on. Because when I said I don't care about the algorithms, they were all like, oh. And I was like, what's beyond this? Okay, we need to look beyond this. And we chatted a few times during February, and I said, look, I'd like to do social media from relaxation. I don't know what that is. Let's ask what that is. And ever since then, I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, God, your social media is like such an invitation to live or just to be you. And I'm like, excellent. That's actually what I was asking for because I would like everyone out there in the world to know that they can choose anything. You need to get over your own stuff. Like whatever is
Mm.
limiting you is brought on by you, and usually these insane points
Mm.
of view that you have. So what if you could clear that? And in Access Consciousness, we have different processes and tools, and the clearing statement, as we mentioned before we, recorded the podcast. We have these tools that can help you with that, and then essentially you have to choose. I think that's one of your greatest potencies is you actually have to make the choice, right? And most people will sit back and try and work something out rather than just choose. If you choose, you'll find out if it's going to work or not. um like relationships, how many relationships have we all chosen and then gone, okay,
Mhm.
maybe that wasn't my smartest choice or whatever, and you move on and you choose something different. So I think it's imperative to have a look at choosing something different every day as well, like maybe outside of your comfort zone. And
Mm.
then today I've had conversations with people I work with, and because we're all over the world, so quite often, depending on where you are, you've got really early morning meetings or meetings late at night. And I said, hey guys, what if I get that we need to do that every now and then, but what if it wasn't a necessity? And what if we looked at, do we really need to have this meeting late at night, or can something else be done? And so we started creating, instead of all of us having to be on something, what we call huddles. So it's like just having a small huddle with like two or three people and
Mm.
then going, okay, it's like a chat and then get stuff done. And I was like, I would like us all to live like everyone's brilliant that I work with. I think they're amazing. They've all got different capacities. I also would like you guys to live. Like we have to choose, like, let's choose joy, let's choose ease, and
Mm.
let's also, and I said also today, I said, we're not short of an idea. That is one thing. We've all got a billion ideas, but I want everyone to start asking what revenue streams can contribute to these ideas. Because I see that we come up with idea and these creative aspects, and it's like, okay, is it also creating a revenue that can support the next creative idea, etc., rather than just having 30 pies in the oven and then let's bring these five to fruition and actualize them and see what shows up, and then let's choose something else. So I'm really asking for everybody that I work with to be functioning from a level of relaxation that we may not have chosen. And I honestly get that when we function from relaxation, we create more. Your
Mm.
businesses expand. Our businesses don't expand. We don't make more money. We don't create more contacts, etc. when we get frantic or frustrated or panic or anything. Never, nothing ever shows up greater from that. But what
mm,
does show up greater is from relaxation.
mm. We're we're pushing up against the old paradigm with the whole idea of joy and relaxation in work life. And I know you've written about this as opposed to hustle culture, and it's certainly the way I was raised to work hard. Like and work is not something that you should by its very nature be enjoyable. It's just something you do, and you do it well, and you do it hard, and then you hopefully buy a house and die with a roof over your head, as opposed to
I know,
looking up the
I
stars
know.
on the street. But
Yeah,
and I still find those elements within myself of that almost guilty sensation when I'm not working. Like I feel, oh my God, I should like how like it's whatever. It's not the weekend. I should be doing
yeah,
this now. This is what. Where actually, if I were to examine it, the ideas and the things which have come out of a space, as you said, of relaxation and joy, have been the most beneficial or the most transformational. Whereas if
yeah.
I'm consistently at loggerheads with people I'm working with or trying to push, like we've got to push this through and just change this and focusing on the negatives, the things we need to fix, nothing ever seems to move very much. It's incremental.
No. And I love that you said that things we need to fix. I'm a big believer in what if nothing ever had to be fixed and we actually don't procrastinate. I
Mm,
think there's always another piece of information. It's like if you find you are quote unquote procrastinating, instead of going to the judgment of yourself, ask, okay, so what other information do I require? Who else do I need to talk to?
mm,
And, yeah, what if nothing needed to be fixed? It's maybe there's a different choice. You have to change something, but what if nothing was right or wrong? And, one of the things Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, said years ago, I loved it. And I loved it and didn't actually choose to function from it for quite some time was he said most people would rather be right than be free.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's so true. And I definitely function from the rightness of my point of view or
yeah.
conclude thinking like just conclude this. If I just work out, this, then I can get the answer and the result that I think will make everything work. And I've realized over the years, Paul, that's actually a really limited point of view.
Mm,
It might be, I might be able to create more than some others, but what you can create from that the freedom of not being right and wrong is way bigger, and way easier and more ease
y-
and easier.
yeah. It's also like to think that the state you're putting your body into when you need when you need to be right. So
Yeah.
everything needs to be perfect. You're a perfectionist. It needs to be right, and that becomes your default operating system in the world, is regardless if that's given you results. And it's no doubt like being a perfectionist means you're an A-type personality, which means you work harder and you do all these things which will cause and effect. You will get certain results from that, but then long term not sustainable. You're gonna run yourself into the ground. You're either, and speaking from experience, like you end up hating the thing you once loved because you've just sucked all the life out of it, or you
Yeah.
cause a physical event because you've created so much stress in your life. Whereas it's something and look, I heard that similar phrase a long time ago. Like, would you rather be happy and free, or would you rather be right? And God damn it, I would rather be right for a very long time. I'll even show you that comment is wrong. Like,
Yep,
uh,
yep. I would have been the same. I would have been trying to prove the rightness of my point of view. And you are correct. Not right. You're correct. Like I ended up in hospital last year because I couldn't walk and my
mm,
whole back, my I had bulging discs in my back and
oh,
just went
yeah,
out. But I was like physically, I mean, I went on this massive hike the day before and it was fine. I was great, but I was pushing myself on so many
yeah,
different levels and not listening to my body.
yeah.
And I'm really been looking at that and like choosing from being in communion with my body and being, I guess, congruent with it. And yeah, asking, okay, what would you like, body? And it's changes so much.
Mm. God, it's interesting. It's such a we're coming out of a very masculine, the negative traits of a masculine paradigm where you push through everything, don't question, just and look, sometimes. that everything is nuanced because I've done a lot of sport, and sometimes, yeah, maybe that niggling thing that you feel is something you could push through and your body was just giving you a small signal and you're fine. But when it becomes just that's your mode of operating and you push through everything, you're going to push
Mm.
yourself off a cliff. And it's the same as opposed to with everything, as opposed to becoming more in communion with your environment, with yourself, and making decisions which are harmonious, which actually come, and it's only something I've only really recently discovered. It's like, what if the question of like, what happens if I actually decide the things that make me excited and joyful? What if I make decisions from that space as opposed to a decision of obligation, necessity, and fear,
Yep.
which has been my default operating system since I began working, or begun, when you become a business owner and you've got staff and everything else, there's a whole, it's not just you making decisions for yourself, there's others you have to consider also. But it's like, how much better is it to make decisions from freedom and be like, well, it's like everything has opened up for me since I made that switch.
Yeah, I would say the same for myself too, Paul. And I think when you choose that for yourself, you show others that they can choose that for themselves as
Mm.
well. And I think one of the tools I learned from Gary Douglas, I went to a business class that he did many, many, many years ago, and he said, how many of you, like in the audience, think that nobody can do the business as well as you? And I was like, yep, me, hand up, nice,
Yeah, yeah.
hi. And then he was like, so who are you hiring? And I was like, God damn it. And I was like, I realized at that moment I was hiring people who couldn't do the job as good as me because my point of view was nobody can do this as well as me. And I was in San Francisco. So in the whole flight home from San Francisco to Australia, I was like looking at this going, I mean, I was grateful for the people that were working with me, but I went, oh, I'm going to start asking for people who are better than me, who are greater than me, like greater at making phone calls, greater at selling, greater at accounts, greater at everything than me, so that I could, and I mean, it was a bit of a struggle to choose this, especially when you're functioning from the rightness of your point of view. So but then I realized I could then have a space and almost be like, what if I created myself to be useless? Because everybody around me was so capable. And then if I become useless,
Mm,
what else would I choose? Like I'm not going to just sit back on the couch with a bottle of wine and watch Netflix. I'm
mm,
actually going to create something more. I'm going to create something different. And that's
mm,
what I'm looking for all the time is like, what if I was useless today? Then I'm going to move into a space that's
mm,
greater.
mm.
I'm not just going to become lazy because I'm not. That's not
No,
me.
no, no, no. Well, it becomes like a well-worn track for me. It was like it's a very well-worn track that I've been skiing down for such a long period of time that I didn't realize there are other slopes that I could explore, and
Mm.
and just that very yeah, it's a very deep conditioning, which I hope has changed. I mean, I'm not sure. There is so much. Gary Vaynerchuk has a lot to answer for with that whole hustle culture. You need to work,
Right.
and Elon Musk saying you need to work 120 hours, like more hours in a week than there are actual hours in a week. But it's this that is a very deep conditioning, and to actually release that, um, yeah. Again, I was just going to say it comes down to like what and I'm not sure if it's a consequence of age or just insight, but it's like, do you want to live a happy and fulfilled life that you actually
Yeah.
enjoy? Or do you want your life just to fly by because you
Yeah.
spent it working because you're actually in a scarcity mindset of fear. If I don't do all these things, then it'll all fall apart, as opposed to trusting.
Okay. But let me I want to talk to I mean, because I mentioned to you before, like the first book I ever wrote is called Joy of Business. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like I was always like, why are you doing it if you don't like it? Like I remember a mate of mine in Sydney met him on Friday night at this bar, and I just got this new job. And he looked at me and he said, Simone, you make me sick how much job satisfaction you get. And I went, what do you mean? And he went, every job you have, you get so excited about it. And I went, but why wouldn't you? And he
Huh.
went, Simone, people get excited about their jobs. And I went, why are you doing them? And so that was my point of view for a long time.
Hmm.
So I sort of, I'm not disagreeing with the get the hustle on or working a lot because I'll go for a run. Like I just went for a jog before I met with you and I get ideas. So I'm jogging, but I get ideas. I get downloaded with stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
actually don't switch myself off from working. I wake up so creative. It's like I can't, I make a coffee in the morning and I'm so creative. And even, maybe I'll do some Pilates or stretching or something like that in the morning. But I'm very like in with my body, but I'm also
Mm.
creative. And for me, that's all work. So I think if you start with maybe getting over your point of view of what work is, like the judgment that you have of a job, of work, etc., and going, oh, I've got to take time off. Like I get so many people say to me, I hope you get to have time for you. I hope you get to have time off. Did you get to have a holiday? And I'm like, a holiday from what? I'm like, consciousness? Like, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was telling you, I was horse riding this morning and I'm like, I'm on my horse. And admittedly, when you're writing, it's like you do have to be totally present. But even that, I learned so much from being totally present on my horse and what's going on. But I still get ideas, and I'm so for me, I think I'm still working, even though
Yeah.
it's could be going for a run.
No, no. I absolutely agree. The only thing I hear though, if people hear that and they're in a job that they don't like, to get to the point of finding, it's just a much bigger conversation, but to get out of that mindset that, okay, I've done, so many people have done what other people have told them for such a long time. They did a course at university. They even studied things at school they were particularly interested in. And they did the uni course and they did the corporate job they weren't interested in. And now they've done that for 20 years. And it's just
Mm.
like, and you hear it in the culture when people say, "Thank God it's Friday, Hump Wednesday." Like, I actually at my company, I banned people from saying those things. Not that they should say them anyway, but like a few people jump on calls, and I'm like, never tell me "Thank God it's Friday." Like, that's if that's your
Yeah,
mentality, then don't be here, because
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
you're headed for, it's a really bad way to view what you're doing. It should be something you enjoy. Not every
I
aspect, but it's,
But I agree. Like I used to, when I was in sales in Sydney, I used to come in on Monday mornings and I'd be like, we've got 5 days. And I'd be so excited about Monday morning because I was like, what can we do this week? But I get it. I think I had a different blood running through my veins
yeah,
with
yeah,
business. I've always chosen what was fun. But also in one aspect, I remember one guy said to me, do you know how bad your resume looks? When I went for this job interview, and I was like, what do you mean? And he went, you've done so many different jobs. And he said, let me guess. He said, you get bored and you leave. And I went, yeah,
yeah.
I do. Like, so I've done so many different things, but I would be, I'd do something and go, oh, well, I've learned all about this. Okay, I'm done.
Hmm.
And I'd move on.
Yeah,
So, and look, people are going to go, oh, but that's really hard. You can't move on. I'm sorry, you can.
you
It's
can.
like
Yeah.
you can. There are so many possibilities available, but you've got to actually lean into that possibility and choose something different. Choose something today that you wouldn't have chosen yesterday.
Mm,
That's on you. Like I think the world is filled with possibilities.
mm. And it can be, it's a muscle that I've found. So you just choose something small that makes you happy, whatever that is, and
Yeah.
you keep building up. You don't have to upend your life or do anything which is going to be financially destructive. Back yourself to be smart enough to find a way out, but to realize that you have choice. Because otherwise, it's who's running the show. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
have choice, then either you're living in North Korea where you legitimately almost don't have choice, or you don't, like, you have no, you're a total victim to your circumstance, and then you really do, and it's harsh to say, but you don't have anyone else but to blame but yourself, because it's every small choice is what has created that for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I totally agree, Paul. And I was talking about this in a class the other day in Colombia because this woman was talking about like not knowing what's joyful for her. And I was like, look at the smallest of things. And
Yeah.
gosh, in Medellin, Colombia, it's amazing. There is plants and trees everywhere. And it's like in a valley, so it's surrounded by mountains. And it's so everywhere you look, you're like, really? It's like not a fake background. It's so beautiful. And I was like, find joy in anything. Like look out the window and it's like, do you see something that's joyful? Or, I was admitting to everybody that sometimes I go to bed at night and I get really excited to wake up in the morning so I can have a coffee.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, I was like, but that's a joy for me. And I said, it's so little. I said, well, water, any form of water, like give me a shower, a bath, a lake, an ocean, anything. My body loves being in water. Okay, so that's a joy. I said, like you, Paul, I said, it doesn't have to be this massive thing. Start locating what that is, like the smallest of things. It
Mm,
could be eating your favorite food, and that's joyful. It could be, sleeping in or getting up early. Like whatever's joyful, you've got to find that joy for you. And then from that, bigger things show up because you literally lean into it and you're grateful.
yeah.
And for me, like that energy of gratitude, which it is an energy, is just expands everything. It doesn't have a judgment. It just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding.
It obliterates. Yeah, I find if I find myself becoming negative about something and I go straight to gratitude now as a habit, I'll become appreciative of trying to everything around me,
Yeah.
and it instantly pulls you out. Whereas before, it's now that you say it, it's reflecting on that need to be right. So when I would get into states where I used to just assume it was normal to be depressed for 4 days a month, for example, like really like, oh, now I'm sad and depressed. It's just the way it is. Or like getting ill. People tell themselves, well, I get ill. Everyone's ill. It's like, well, you're going to get ill. Like you're literally telling your body time to get ill. Um,
Yeah.
and all these things are just habits. But when I used to need to be right and I was feeling bad, I would then look for reasons to be upset. So to justify to be right. So no, I have every right to feel depressed and sad. All these things are not correct in my life as I see it. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until
Yeah.
I realized, like,
Build up the evidence.
well, I'm going to build up the evidence. Look where I'm living. Oh my God. Like, I'm going to run out of money in a couple of years. Everything's going to
Yeah.
fall. And then it's probably going to be a third world war. Who cares? Like,
I call it your Dios mio story. Your Dios
yeah.
mio, what's
Oh,
the story? Yeah.
poor me. And then you'd infect poor other people. You'd go out. How are you? Oh man, you got 20 minutes. Just let me complain at you about how bad
Yeah.
my life is. This is just this. Or you just find because you're in that vibrational state, you'd find other people who would also love to sit and complain about all the ills of the world. Um,
Quantum entanglement. That's
yeah,
what science says.
total quantum
But
and total quantum, and then
yeah.
and that became, and it wasn't all of a sudden when you realize the freedom of like, oh, you're an idiot, like you've literally talked yourself internally into this state. And now
Yeah.
looking back at my younger self, it's all experiencing and learning, and I'm grateful for those experiences because it propelled me to here. But now to think, if I was allowed, I just would not allow myself to go down that pathway. I just, even sometimes in the morning when I wake up and it could be just a negative thing happening in my psyche, I'm like, son, like, and it's not to say
Yeah.
this is the remove, like, obviously there's reasons, there's grief, there's things which you should feel those emotions and process them. It's not to say you're stuffing down negative things which you should legitimately feel, but so often these things are self-perpetuated through habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you have to stay in it. Like, anger would be something for me, or
Mm.
that frustration sort of thing. Like I don't, I don't have a great deal of allowance for stupidity. And so,
No,
but I notice
nor should
that.
you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. But I've noticed that. So if I get angry or frustrated or something like that, then I'm like, all right, I'm really frustrated about this or angry about this. But I go, well, if I'm going to be frustrated or angry, I'm going to enjoy it. So for 10 minutes, I'm going to enjoy this, but like you, Paul, I would hang on to that for days. Or I used to
Yeah.
wake up depressed. Years ago, I honestly thought everybody woke up depressed.
I
And then, yeah,
I thought you had to get yourself, like, I would have to do like
because
10 practices to pull myself out of it. I'm like, I just wake up like, oh no, what's going to happen
another
today?
day.
Another bloody
No, I
day.
know, I know. Yeah. And I mean, there was quite a few days I'd wake up and just have a few tears, like start crying. And I mean, this is years ago, like this is like 30 years ago, but I
Mm,
thought that was normal. And it doesn't have to be normal. You create, as you said, you create your life. So you create that as normal, or you can change it. So yeah, it's your point. I think your point of view, as I said before, is one of your greatest potencies. Like you get to choose to wake up happy, or you get to choose to find the joy, or you get to choose
mm,
to wake up angry or frustrated. And like I said, if you're going to be angry or frustrated, enjoy it,
mm,
revel in it. But then it's too much energy. I'm like, oh, this is getting really boring. I can't, being angry at this is,
mm,
what's it actually going to create? But for me, it's not about judging that I'm choosing to be angry, or judging that I'm choosing to be frustrated, or judging it. And I think that's the piece that locked me up for so many years, is I would judge what I was choosing rather than going, okay, I'm choosing it. All right, now I'm done. I'm over it. Like, not realizing that you can change like that, like every
Mm.
moment, like you were mentioning about, the work thing. Like yesterday I came here and it's so relaxing here in Costa Rica. It's amazing. And I found myself going, okay, what have I got on tomorrow? Okay, I've got this, I've got this. Okay, and I've got these big chunk of hours. Okay, I could work on my new book. Okay, I could do, and I went, Simone, stop. You know what? You could just be and just find out. Like, I might end up working on my new book, but I don't have to, just relax and just be, and just choose every moment. Like, now what? Now what? Like, before I came on here with you, 2 hours ago, I was like, am I going to nap or am I going to go for a run? I was like, I think I'm going to go for a run. So I went for a run, and it just not having to do something, like, and even exercise, like not having to go and exercise or having to do
Mm.
this. Running out here in nature is just
Oh, it's
so
the
fun
best.
with all the birds. The
Yeah.
toucans, like, there's toucans here. They're not just on Fruit Loop packets,
Yeah.
they're actually
Yeah.
here. It's amazing.
They're,
So, but taking myself out of, like, one of the tools I would use is, okay, if I wasn't trying to do something here, what can I be?
mm. It's we become very attached to our identity, though, don't we, with all of the things that we've done. So we have this constructed identity. I'm the hustling whatever. I'm the person who always exercises. I don't nap, and they become prisons as opposed to loosening up your
Yeah,
grip on who you think you are and what's possible, uh, which creates more options for more questions and more expansion,
yeah,
as opposed to this is the way I am in my life and this is the way I approach life. And this is, by that very nature of all these decisions, what life has now become. So can't you see it? This is my life. And the more you choose, I found the more I've loosened myself, because I was in exactly that position. The more I've loosened that, it's really easy to see the structures of other people show up. So you can,
yeah,
because they're in these loops, and you'll hear, like, whatever it is, you hear like once a month it will be the same story that they've told themselves, and you hear it again. But look, if they're not ready, I've learned the hard way. If they're not ready to change, you don't bring that up, because that goes down like a lead balloon. But it's just interesting seeing the structures, and I just bring that, I just spin that back around to myself. Or where else am I trapping my life with unquestioned beliefs that I inherited, and just
yeah.
continually piercing.
And one of the things I would do too, Paul, though, if it was up, is ask, like, you ask someone, hey, is it working for you? Are you happy?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Rather than telling them what they need to do, what you need to do
Yeah.
is be more like me. That would work out well for
No,
you.
and nobody
No,
likes to be told
no,
what
no, no,
to
no,
do.
no, no, no. Of course not.
Yeah.
So,
But
sorry.
asking them a question can open a door to something different.
Yeah, yeah, and particularly if you can feel it, it's coming. That energy is coming from compassion and love, because they can instantly
Mm.
feel that, as opposed to a judgment of, yeah, because it can be
Exactly.
very frustrating when you're seeing someone banging their head against the wall, and you're like, come on. But then equally,
Yeah.
it's like we've all had our moments of that. But it's easy to
I was
forget.
gonna say, I've banged my head against a wall plenty of times. And do you know what? I've banged my head against a wall plenty of times. And one thing I always remember is when Einstein said, doing the
Yeah.
same thing and expecting a different result is the first sign of insanity. And money was one of the first things about that. Because with money, I did everything I could to prove I didn't need money. I could still create. I could still be
Mm,
happy. And I avoided money. I disdained it. I did all of this. And I ended up creating myself to be hugely in debt. And that Einstein quote really rang for me. And I went, I need to change the way I'm looking at this. And it was not easy to do that, because I was so familiar with that energy of being in debt. I was familiar with getting my hustle on. How am I going to get rent this week? I was familiar with, being able to pay a bill at the last minute, or having just enough money and all of that. I was
mm,
really familiar with that. And then making that choice to go, you know what, Simone, what if you found out what it was like to actually have money, and then going through that whole thing, because I had so many judgments about it, and
mm,
weaving myself out of that. But every day I would choose something that would change my reality, my financial reality, and change it to be something different, because I knew I didn't want to live my whole life like that. And I'm going to say that, and also the same thing with relaxation, and not, judging that and choosing from the joy of it. It sounds so crazy. Oh, Simone, you're going to, choose to have money and choose to be relaxed. And you go, that's easy. Why don't you choose that? But we lock ourselves up with all these insane points of view, like the doing and like the rightness and the conclusion, all of that, rather than that freedom that we've been talking about. And I was like, I'd like the freedom. I'd like the freedom to have more, be more, happier, joy, all of that and more, and be a gift to the planet. It's more than what I have been. Like, what else is possible?
Mm. Can we just quickly circle back? Because I would want to know what were some of those steps you did to change your relationship with money and to create abundance?
Okay, so one of the things I did was, the first thing I did, I realized I didn't know what my point of view was about money.
Yeah,
Because, if someone went,
that's a big
a
one.
fast car drove past, and they went, oh,
You'd be
look at
like,
that car, it's so
that's an asshole. Look at that asshole. What he sell? Is he selling
exactly. And
drugs?
I know,
Must be selling drugs,
well, yeah,
or
exactly.
inherited it. Yeah,
Yeah. And I was like, hang on, I don't even know what my point of view is. Like,
yeah,
and I grew up with a father who was an entrepreneur who had to hide it because my mother was, she was that mentality. We get a house, we own a house, we pay it off, now we're safe,
yeah.
whereas my dad was like, look at that business, look at that business. And so he was an entrepreneur, mum was play it safe. And I'm like, well, where am I? Like, what, and basically neither of those points of view and more is what I would be. So what I used to do was every single time in my head, anything, like even walking past a restaurant, and I'd think, oh, that must be an expensive restaurant or something. I was like, okay, stop.
Yeah.
And so using that clearing statement that we have an access consciousness, I would go, okay, because it's going to that point of creation, the point of destruction of where you have that point of view. And so I'd go, okay, POC and POD, which is the short version,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, everything that that is, I'll destroy and uncreate it, right? And I'm good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys, provids, and beyonds, right? Which you can find out more about that at
I'll leave that
theclearingstatement.com.
in the
But
link. Yeah.
okay, cool. And then, you'd walk past this restaurant and then I go, okay, so if I was choosing my financial reality, what would I choose? And would sit with that question. And I'd even watch, like, because when I was flying and things like that, they have those really random documentaries on, a kid who got an 18-carat gold bike for their birthday or something like that. And
Mm.
immediately you go, that's ridiculous, right?
Mm.
Why is it ridiculous? Because it's too much gold for a kid? Whose point of view is that? So I would go, okay, what's my point of view? And be like, that'd be friggin' fun to be riding an 18-carat gold bike around. I'm sure where I'd park it, but there was all these different things that would show, and from everything, and poverty as well. Like I was in LA, and a friend of mine was looking for an apartment, and we're driving around LA, and we went to this area, and I was like, okay, are the doors locked? Like, because I was like, this is dodgy area. And I noticed I had a point of view about that. And then we drove to Bel Air, and you drive through the gates of Bel Air, and I literally whispered and I went, "Are we allowed to be here?" Like,
Huh.
and I realized that sense of wealth, I was like, I was getting intimidated by that, and I was
Yeah.
intimidated by the poverty.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole lot of like this middle class that I
That's
was like,
classic
I'm
middle
comfortable
class.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, why would I not choose to be comfortable in all of it and choose from awareness? So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, I was like, okay, what's my point of view about money, and where would I like to live? And so I kept pock and potting my points of view that I had, because I realized none of them are mine. I'm not actually even sure what mine is. And then asked, okay, if I was choosing my financial reality, what would I choose? So that's one thing I would do. The next thing I did, which I thought was absolutely insane, and it's one of the tools that Gary and Dane gave me, was putting 10% away of everything that you earn that's just for you. So you earn $100, you put $10 away, and it's just for you. It's not for a rainy day. It's not to pay the bills when you get stuck. It's
Mm.
not to lend to someone, nothing. It's just this honoring of you. And at that time, Paul, I'd worked out that I was about 187,000 Australian dollars in debt,
Yeah.
and I'm earning money, and I'm putting 10% away for me. And I was like, this is insane. And I was like, oh, I feel so bad. I owe all these people money, and I'm putting 10% away for me. But I literally set myself a date and I went, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 months and do this and see if something changes. And there's a couple of other tools that I used, and they're all in the book, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, which is by Gary and Dane. And at the end of 3 months, I looked at all of this and I looked at my money and I realized I didn't have like this great deal of extra money, but I realized my point of view had changed, and energetically I wasn't doing this hustle for money,
Mm.
and I wasn't I wasn't functioning from lack. And what I realized, one of my greatest awarenesses was I was using no money as this source of creation. Like once I have no
Mm.
money, then I'll create,
God, it's a classic.
rather than what if I have money? Like, I don't know, what do we doubt that we're not going to create? Like, and so if I have money, then what would I choose? What would I create? And so I noticed after 3 months, the point of view I had around money, the energy's changed. So I kept doing the 10% account, and I still have my honor account. And my money situation changed big time. And it took me about 2 years to get out of debt. And but the funny thing is, Paul, I also remember I was sitting in my office in Brisbane at the time when I realized I was out of debt, and I sat there and I was like, oh, I have money. I went, this is a bit boring. And I was like, I literally, I was on my own and I went, huh, this is it. And I was like, no one's knocking on the door with a bottle of champagne going, Simone, you did it. I was like, this is it. And 2 weeks later, I found myself back in debt. And I was like, what the hell am
Ha.
I doing?
Yeah.
And so I started
Turning the
asking myself
baseline.
and I started asking myself the question, what do I love about creating debt? And over again. And everything that came up, I would pock and pot it. Okay, what do I love about creating debt? This, this, this. And one of the main things that popped for me was I knew that energy. And it sounds so
Mm.
strange, but I knew the energy of debt. I did not know what it was like to have money.
Mm.
So I went, I'm gonna make that my reality. I'm actually gonna have money. And I did all those things like having money is evil, you're the asshole, you're the
Yeah.
whatever. It's not true. Money doesn't make you an asshole. It's like you're an asshole if you're an asshole, but money doesn't make you that. It's like that's having more money actually creates more ease for what it is you want to create in the world too.
Yeah.
So, and you also justify having money. And I did go through that stage too. Like I will do good things with it. And I was like, well, what if I just do anything with it? It's my
Mm.
choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big, big, big journey, and still is. I don't think you get to a point with money um that this is like, "Oh, I've got it." Like, I mean, I have investments now, commercial properties, residential, and I have stock portfolio and everything. And there's other stuff that shows up with money. And my main thing is, I ask myself a lot, will this make me happy if I choose this? Will this be ease? And I
Mm.
try and choose mostly from that.
Thank you. That was wonderful. There's so much. I mean, there's so many threads I could go with that. But it's interesting when you say it comes back again to choice, because I know people with a lot of money, and I know people with no money, and I know people with a
Mm,
lot of money who are trapped by their money. They're consistently worried about, they're still
mm.
even though they've got hundreds of millions of dollars, they're still in a scarcity mindset because they're worried about now protecting all these assets and managing them all.
Yeah.
And look, from my point of view, what they're experiencing looks like a headache. Um, so they're sort of made themselves gilded chains or gilded handcuffs. And then equally, I know people who don't have much money, but they've actually chosen, because they've chosen a path in life. They just want to have the freedom to, they don't want to, whatever it may be, but they've made their peace with the fact that they don't need a lot of money. So it comes down to a choice. But it sounds like you and I, that's a rarity, because it sounds like you and I had a similar conditioning. Because I always had, I remember a comment that really stuck with me that an uncle made, that if you want to know what God thinks about money, look at the people He gives it to, in,
Mm.
inferring they're all assholes. And then,
Right.
and my mum, I just always remember saying, "Oh no, we couldn't do that. That's for other people, darling. That's
That's for
that's
other people.
that's for other people." That was always, and my dad would be like, "Oh, you think money grows on trees? Where do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think I'm doing every day?" And
Yeah.
and he, ironically, he had a point in his life where he could have sold his business and made a lot of money, and he self sabotaged it to eventually lose all of that. because of these things. And look, they didn't have the tools that we have now. Like, I mean, look, there were things available, but it's a lot easier now to access things which can help you with these states. But yeah, there's just so many unquestioned beliefs, from, I used to do art, and I know a lot of people still do art, and there's almost like a pride in being a starving artist. Like,
Oh,
I am proud I have not sold out and not success. And then the artists who have become successful, like, yeah, but their art's shit now. Like, all these things, like,
yeah,
I don't know, their art looks pretty bloody good to me. Like, it looks
yeah,
like, they're now creating bigger and better art because they've got the funds. Um,
yeah,
oh, but there's
yeah.
lots of, it's all these,
And
and
choice. That's all choice.
and it's the
That's choice, choice, choice,
it's
choice, choice.
it's
Yeah.
all these choice, and it's not until you, as you said, like, you start, and I've done it, where you go, yeah, what the big one was, like, what is my relationship with money? Because I had the same thing, and there was a guy, I came out of my hot hit Pilates in my little probably too much information here, and I was
And
like,
your little
what,
shorts.
in my little shorts, just wandering out with my little towel, red as a chili, and a guy showed up, and it was just because we live in, ostensibly it's the country kind of here, and a guy just rolled up in a brand new Bentley, like this ridiculous, like, specced out Bentley, and I just
Yeah.
instantly went to, dude, like, that is so garish in this environment, like, and I judged him, and then I said, but I'm like, hold on, like, I have no idea who this guy is. I don't know what he's in. And why am I judging? Like, that's my own hang up over what I think needs to be a presentable way of other people
Yeah.
viewing you. And then, like, maybe someone's looking at me hopping in. I've got a Tesla, and they're thinking, who's this asshole driver? Thinks he's saving the world. He's still burning coal. Likes Elon. He's probably far right because he likes it. Like, all the things that now people think about Elon Musk. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous when you start dismantling the stuff and actually going, what is it I want? And, and for,
Mm.
and then what money is, this energy, and it's also an energy transfer of value, ostensibly, like,
Mhm.
someone can, whether it's real value or perceived. And then and I've set, like, real, I don't want the world, but I've set amounts that I know I'd be very happy with and I can contribute. But equally, it's like, I want to do a lot of help in the world for art. Like, yes, I've got
Yeah.
things. I want to buy a certain car. Like, I'm not ashamed. It's like, the things I like. Like, I like certain level clothing and so on. But equally, if I also want to do things for other people, how am I going to do that without funds? Am I just going to be someone
Mm.
who's a keyboard warrior online criticizing all these people whilst not actually helping anybody? Because it's clearly then my own hang up, as opposed to, like, even Mother Teresa had to go out and get people to invest to create what she did.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
do anything with it. As you said, it doesn't, maybe it just amplifies who you are already. Like,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, well, I mean, I think it's so much about not having the point of view. Like, I love your story of the guy showing up in the Bentley, and it's like, but who is he?
yeah,
It's like, what if we were more like kids, Paul? Like when they're like 4, 5, 6, and they're like they see another kid and they're like, "Hi, you want to play?"
yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah. Hey, I like your earrings.
Yeah,
Oh, that would be, yeah,
yeah. I don't care what your name is, the color of your skin, what car you came in, where do you
yeah,
live. It's just like, you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
play? What if we were more like that? We had more vulnerability with each other, and it was irrelevant about what car we drove or the clothes we wore or whatever, so that you were willing to engage with everybody. What if it was more about the engaging because it was like the kindness that somebody is, or the humor that they had or whatever? It's like money is actually, I think, is one of the greatest things that creates racism.
Mm,
It's not the color of our skin, because if you look at, if there's somebody who, someone might be racist about, some certain culture or religion or color of the skin, but once they've got money, it goes away to an extent. And money creates this racism between people, and it's like, money, as you said, it's like
mm,
money's just money. It's like we get to choose it or don't choose it. There's not a lack of money in the world. There's people choosing a lack of money. And I also think right now, in also traveling around the world, it's interesting. Australia is probably one of the worst countries at the moment of holding on to it, like that we're waiting for doomsday. It's like
mm.
I love when the government said we're in a recession one day, but the day before we weren't. And then everyone went, "Oh my God, we're
Oh,
in a
yeah, yeah,
recession."
yeah, yeah. Oh my
Started
God, let's,
freaking out.
yeah,
Like, let's hold on to everything. Why? If you're holding on to everything, like, you can't, like, I think we need to flow. I think we need to have the flow
yeah,
of that cash flow,
yeah.
the flow. so then something greater can show up. Then are you doubting that you will not create something tomorrow? And
Mm.
that's probably what you need to look at, not hold on to everything and for doomsday.
And keeping yourself trapped, then you're completely trapped, because then you will never leave that job because you're in a fear base and you're worried that you can't be generative in any other way, and you've got all these other things you need to pay. I just want to, it's really interesting, and I'm not sure if this is a level of going a level even above complete complete refusal to believe in scarcity and complete acceptance that you're being looked after by a greater force. And one of my, I love Buckmaster Fuller, really futurist and sort of architect, and did incredible work. But later on in his life, he was doing complete genius. So he'd have all these people giving him money to do all these kind of different projects. But at the end of every month, once he'd paid for everything that he needed to, and if he had any money left, he would always sign that money over, sign a check, and give it away to whatever cause you were supporting at the time. And his friends would say, what are you doing, Bucky? You're crazy. And he goes, every time I do that, next month it's always there. Just that.
Yeah.
It's like Richard
Yeah.
Dr. Hawkins also had that same thing. Like, once you actually understand that exchange and creation of money, and you actually truly surrender to that, and look, I'm nowhere near, I'm not doing that
Yeah.
just yet. But that complete trust that you will be looked after, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, that is flow. That's true flowing with what's available for you.
And you've used the word true a couple of times, and I think that's the relevant part too, because you can't just do that and say you're doing that. You've got to be that,
You've
like
got to
really
be it.
be that.
Yeah.
And Gary Douglas said to me years ago, he said, if you have a generosity of spirit, the universe will gift you at least 10 times that.
Mm.
And that's that same energy. It's just, but you can't be like, oh, now I have a generosity of spirit, universe, show me. It's like, no, it just shows up. It just shows up.
Yeah. It's that belief in, and it's that complete, but and it comes down again to choosing something different. It's a belief that your life can be better. It's a belief that you'll be looked after, and as you said, it can't be rote. It's not, you're not just speaking it and then you're still got all your negative patterns and you're still talking to yourself in a terrible way. It's, you've really, and look, for a lot of people it comes when they get pushed to the edge of whatever they're doing is so not working any longer, that they
Mm.
all they can do is choose something different. But ideally you want to start recognizing that in yourself and choose not be pushed to the edge before you have to surrender.
Yeah, you don't have to have that 2x4 in the back of the head. You could
Does
maybe
help
just
though,
get that light
just a
touch, or
tap.
if you're listening to this now, just go, oh, maybe I should like start to pivot and change trajectory of my life or
Yeah,
something, change the script.
change the script. So I'm so grateful for your time. Is there anything I haven't asked you? Is there anything else you want to run over for people?
I'm good. I think this has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me here. I mean, there's a billion topics that we can always talk about, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you as well.
You too. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this as well, and I'd love to have you back. And I am 100% going to come to a Costa Rican Access Consciousness retreat. So
That would be amazing.
we'll have to tee
We
that
would
up.
have, yeah.
But I'd just like to finish then with so much. If you tap into any of the news feeds, or even just open your Instagram and follow a few people, and cop all the things that are going on in the world. I'm eternally optimistic, and I think that human beings are headed for. I think we're choosing to head for a brighter future. But what are your feelings on where we're currently at? Because I think there's half the countries going to elections this year. We've obviously got old Trumpy.
I mean, as much as we might like it or not like it, it's like what shows up in the US
Shows
is
up
it
everywhere else.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. So, look, as I said to you before we started, is I really think 2020, 21 was amazing because so many people just went, what the hell? And
What am I
started to
doing?
look at
Yeah.
my choice creates my life, like creates how I live. And I think there's a lot of people who started to wake up in a different way and to meet different people, engage with different people, and I think we're heading for something amazing. I'm not so sure we have any idea what this is going to look like, but I'm like you. I'm hugely positive on everything, and but it has to. Our choices create our future. So in truth, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. What are you choosing today? Because what you choose today creates our future. So
Mm.
that's where I'm heading. It's like, let's go.
It's and the thing I take, like I have, like, obviously we all want to see people lifting consciousness and being more joyful and doing what they want to love and contributing their unique, authentic, beautiful selves to the world. But also don't get caught up with that messiah complex in everyone else needs to be in this state for you to be happy, because it's never going to happen. And whatever is happening in the world, you still have the option of being happy and creating
Yeah.
and creating that reality. And I'm actually starting to think that we are having in dimensions of, like, there are all things exist, and we're just choosing to access distant dimensions of reality for ourselves.
Well, I think we're I mean, like, Avatar, we're also connected, and it's, I mean, heck, we've even all got stardust in our bodies, they
Yeah.
say, like in DNA, etc. And I think you've got to look at, like, not having the expectations or projections of how everybody has to be. Like this morning, just a really quick story. There was one of the guys who looks after all the horses here. His name is Alexis. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak really bad Spanish. Like I can understand a few words.
Yeah.
And I watched him with my horse, and I was like, oh my goodness, the kindness that this guy is with these
Mm,
horses was incredible. And that energy alone, that creates a future. Like we were talking about, it doesn't have to be this big, massive thing. It's like you find that joy, you find that, and it's like that creates a different future.
yeah. Well, because we are all connected. So when that one joyful experience happens, or that empathy, then that you embody it, you pass that on, and it's exactly the same with all
Yeah.
these other modalities. So there's nothing
Yeah.
more important than you being happy and joyful, because that yeah, as you just said, that is the future.
Mm-hmm.
So don't. So that's
Yep.
not something that comes after you've done everything else. That needs to come first.
Yes, absolutely. And I see so many people go, oh, when I have money, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
No, you're not gonna.
It's
Yeah.
like when I get this, when I find that the one, when I do, no, oh, you get to wake up and you get to choose to be happy. That's
Yeah.
your choice.
Yeah.
Mm.
What a thank you. That's just a wonderful place to finish. I will put for your books, for contacts for your, put all that in the show notes for people. And they obviously, what's the best place to contact for you? Is that through? Is it still through socials? Where do you want people to
No, no,
find you?
well, I've got a good name, I think, because there's no another Simone Milasas. So Simone Milasas is my Instagram, is my Facebook, is my website, is everything, and also in accessconsciousness.com. So yeah,
Yeah, and people, yeah, head over, because you've got some really amazing free material too on the tubes, and you give a lot, everything
yeah,
you've
I've got
been talking about. You've got
panels
lots
from
of
across.
things. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you
everything
so
you're
much.
doing. No, no, lovely to meet you, and thank you for all that you're doing. And yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up again.
Yeah, maybe I'll meet a fellow Australian in Costa Rica.